It started as a routine hearing on a gray Tuesday morning, the kind of morning that made you question why you ever trusted routine in the first place. The courtroom, seated inside a historic brick courthouse on the edge of Easton County, was packed. Locals filled the rows with quiet curiosity, murmuring behind their hands as they sized up the people around them, lawyers with overstuffed folders, clerks with coffee cups, a judge with a reputation for punctual rulings, and a few off-duty officers standing in the back like the guardians of order. In the fourth row, Alina Brooks sat perfectly still. She wasn't trying to be seen, yet it was impossible not to notice her. She wore a navy windbreaker zipped halfway, a pair of faded jeans, and the kind of neutral sneakers you forgot the moment you looked away. A paper visitor badge clung to her chest, the adhesive already peeling at the edges. Her posture was relaxed, but a lurch-right ankle resting atop her left knee, hands lightly folded in her lap, and her expression locked in something between meditation and vigilance. To most in the room, she was just another bystander. But to the few who knew her, really knew her, Alina was a powder keg wrapped in calm. At the defense table sat her younger brother, Devin Brooks. Barely 20, the kid looked more lost than guilty. He kept glancing over his shoulder at her. Every time their eyes met, she gave him a small nod. A soldier's nod. The kind that says, hold the line. I've got you. 2 rows ahead, the state's prosecutor leaned into the shoulder of Officer Hank Rollins, the uniformed cop who arrested Devin 2 weeks prior. Rollins sat with a heavy kind of confidence, arms folded over his broad chest, thick biceps straining the sleeves of a standard-issue uniform that looked one size too small. He smirked as if he already knew how the day would end. Alina didn't look at him, but she knew his type from a mile off. She'd faced them in training grounds, in forward operating bases, in war zones where posture and ego could mean the difference between survival and chaos. Men like Rollins didn't just walk into a room, they threw their weight around, testing who would flinch and who wouldn't. Case number 8294B, State of Easton versus Devin Brooks, the bailiff called out. Judge Leclerc tapped her gavel once, and the room fell into a sudden hush. Devin stood, the metal cuffs around his wrists rattling. His attorney, a young woman named Rachel Levins who had only met Devin 2 weeks ago, stood beside him with more resolve than comfort. Your Honor, she began, we'd like to call Alina Brooks to the stand. Heads turned. A wave passed through the gallery like someone had opened a window midwinter. Alina rose without haste, moving with the kind of control that didn't come from etiquette, but from years of training. A young intern clerk near the aisle shrank back slightly as she passed, as if Alina carried an energy that upset the air around her. She climbed the steps to the witness stand, right hand raised. Please state your name for the record, the clerk said. Alina Brooks. Occupation. She turned to the prosecutor, met his eyes directly, and replied, Master Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance. A collective breath caught in the room. Even Judge Leclerc tilted her head slightly, surprised. Rollins scoffed faintly. The prosecutor stiffened his back. Rachel continued with practiced calm. MS. Brooks, can you explain why you're here today? I'm testifying on behalf of my brother. Were you with Mr. Brooks on the night of the alleged incident? Yes. And how can you be sure of that? I was on leave. He stayed at my apartment. I have flight records, my building's security logs, and a neighbor who brought over cobbler around 10 p.m. and stayed to gossip for an hour. A few people in the gallery chuckled softly. The judge gave a disapproving glance, and silence returned. Rollins shifted, cracking his neck, arms folded tighter. No more questions, Rachel said. The judge turned to the prosecutor. Cross. The man stood, adjusted his tie like he was bracing for turbulence. MS. Brooks, he began, is it true you're trained in hand-to-hand combat? Yes. Trained with weapons? Yes. Does your training include tactics for deception, say, lying to protect a fellow Marine, or, in this case, your brother? Alina's eyes didn't even flicker. No, and I haven't lied today. You claim he was with you. But how do we know he didn't sneak out later that night? She answered coolly. You don't. That's your job to prove, counselor. Not mine. The prosecutor blinked, momentarily thrown. From the back of the room, Rollins chuckled under his breath, just loud enough to be heard. Alina turned her head slightly in his direction, eyes flat and unreadable. No further questions, the prosecutor mumbled, sitting down. Alina stepped down from the witness stand. That was when it happened. As she passed the prosecution table, Officer Rollins accidentally elbowed her in the ribs quick, sharp, and anything but accidental. A loud gasp swept the room. The bailiff's voice rang out, "Hey, step back." But Alina didn't move. She didn't wince. She didn't blink. She simply turned her head, stared at Rollins as if he were a bug on a windshield, and stood her ground. Judge Leclerc slammed the gavel. "Order in the court." "What just happened?" "I didn't see her," Rollins said with a shrug. "You were 2 feet away," the bailiff snapped. "Your Honor," Alina said calmly. "May I speak openly?" The judge hesitated, then nodded. Alina turned to the room, her voice clear and resonant. "I've been shot at. I've lost friends to roadside bombs and ambushes. But I've never been assaulted by a police officer inside a courtroom in front of a sitting judge." You could hear a pin drop. "I request Officer Rollins be removed from the courtroom until my testimony is complete." Judge Leclerc's jaw clenched. "Bailiff, escort Officer Rollins out." Now, Rollins began to protest, but the bailiff had already moved, one hand hovering near her holster. Rollins hesitated, then stood and began walking. As he passed Alina, he leaned in and hissed, "This isn't over." Without looking at him, she murmured, "Neither is the war." The courtroom didn't resume after that. It unraveled. People whispered in hushed tones. The judge called a recess. Reporters started whispering into their phones. And slowly, the gallery emptied like a church after a scandalous sermon. Outside the courthouse, beneath towering oak trees, Devin sat on a bench. The cuffs were gone, but he looked just as shackled. Alina stood beside him, hands in her pockets, staring straight ahead. "You okay?" he asked quietly. She exhaled slowly, measuring each word. "You're not taking that plea deal." "They said it's only 3 years," he mumbled. She crouched to face him. "A felony conviction follows you forever. You can't vote in some states. You'll struggle to rent an apartment, get a job, qualify for loans. That's not a fresh start, it's a sentence with no end." Tears filled his eyes. "I don't want to disappear." "You won't," she said. "Not if I can help it." That's when a man in the charcoal gray suit appeared, walking toward them with measured steps. He held out a badge. "Alina Brooks?" he asked. She nodded. "Agent Noel Granger, Department of Civil Rights Investigations." "You're late," Alina said. "I know. I heard about the incident inside. Rollins is already trying to wipe footage and clean logs. Obstruction of justice." Granger smirked. "Around here, we call that Monday." He nodded toward Devin. "You're in deeper than you think. Rollins is just one tentacle. There are others, officers, lawyers, even judges have buried misconduct reports, shut down investigations, retaliated against whistleblowers." Alina folded her arms. "So what now?" "We go loud," Granger said. "You've got credibility. We make this public." Alina thought for a long moment, her mind working fast, calculating risks. "Do you have backdoor access to municipal servers?" Granger smiled. "I'm dirty enough to find it." She tore off a piece of napkin from her pocket, scribbled a name. "Marcus Langley. Arrested 3 months ago. Same officer. He'll talk if you ask the right questions." Granger tucked the napkin into his inner pocket. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "Draw fire," Alina said. She wasn't naive. One public hearing, one shove in a courtroom wasn't the war. But it was a skirmish one. It was enough to light a fuse. Devin wouldn't go back in chains. Not because of luck. Because someone had fought for him, not behind a desk, not through social media, but in person, out loud, in the middle of enemy territory. As Alina stood outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded her with questions, flashing cameras, mic booms raised high. She didn't answer. This wasn't about headlines. It was about the system learning a new rule. When you swing at a soldier in a courtroom, you better be ready for the whole unit to respond. Granger caught up with her on the sidewalk, gave a curt nod. "Backup's coming. We've already got internal files leaking." Good. Let them scramble. Let them sweat. They had messed with the wrong veteran in the wrong courtroom, and now Alina Brooks was just getting started.